How and why make characters believe in undefendable? I have a scene in one of my book, in my last book, New Down Silver Souls, where initially in the first draft it just naughty imperial cavalryman is chasing innocent refugee because he's arrogant, is evil, and I try to, even in first draft, I try to add something like that. He really believes in that this is for good thing. They're fighting for justice. They're fighting for God. It's a first draft. I had no earthly clue what am I doing, and frankly, I'm speaking only for myself, but I believe many writers can relate. In the first draft, I usually figure out things as I go and actually make things make bit more sense as I go. And I figure out later that this character Lorenzo, who's chasing those refugees, he's absolutely irredeemable bastard, evil. He gets his comeuppance really soon. I mentioned in previous videos that opening scene is basically main character Lars setting up trap for enemy cavalry, and this is when it goes. And this is, I want you to hate Lorenzo. I want you to despise him, and I want you to cheer when he gets his head chopped off. But in same time, I am not scared of cardboard cutouts, and I don't think you are either. Whenever you have character who is just like, oh yes, I used to torture little animals when I was a child, and now I'm going to torture you. When I read or hear something like that, I'm not a. It doesn't make me scared for me or for characters. It makes me roll my eyes and chuckle. That's something Professor Evil would said. And yes, I went over the top. I'm joking around, but some of my favorite books ever, and I don't want to name them, but they come from one specific actor or writer who has great, and I mean great pacing, great world building, great system, great action, great characters. Yes, great characters, except for villain for whatever reasons, and not even all of them. A lot of the villains are genuinely terrifying, but whenever there's villain who has to interact with main characters more than once, for whatever reason, this writer who I otherwise respect, and again, I almost feel shameful for not saying his or her name because those books they write are some of my favorite ever, but this person's villains are just, I mean, heroes are good. Like I said, everything is good except villains are just such a cardboard cutout. They like children trying to be tough and bad. And you know what? I love some hateable characters. Again, I want you to hate Lorenzo, but what I figured out that no matter how evil character is, especially if he's doing something irredeemable, it actually benefits and makes them story if they have some sort of internal logic. I would say that I love when characters, well, specifically villains, when villain is hero of his own story. Now, that doesn't mean I have to write the whole different book. It doesn't mean that villain is not a bad person. It means that villain has some sort of logic and belief that they're doing right thing. But then again, talk about, when I say this, I mean villains as if main villains, leaders of the enemy, and not goon or side enemies, such as Thanos is considered to be one of the greatest villains ever, but his lieutenants are more cartoonish. Well, I wanted Lorenzo be like that. I wanted to be cartoon. I wanted to be extremely hateable because I don't want main villains to be hateable. I want them to be sympathetic. But I also want those goons super hateable. So how to do it? And way I figured out that is in Lorenzo's mind, war is bad, obviously. War comes to murder and violence, it's the destruction of innocence. And everyone who starts or helps, or everyone who starts or doesn't stop war is a bad person. Well, in Lorenzo's mind, if your neighbor is getting sexually assaulted and you don't help her, you are a monster. And many people would agree. You don't have to fight, you don't have to be hero, but at least call the police. If you know that, if you see how your neighbor, who's a nice woman, her ex-husband kicks her door in the middle of night and beats her and tries to kill her, and you don't call cops, in Lorenzo's mind, you are a bad person. And many people would agree. Thing is that in Lorenzo's mind also, if you start the war, or like I said, doesn't help stop the war, you are a bad person. And in this case, rebels opposing imperial government are starting a war. And Lorenzo believes that in this war, not just imperials but also rebels and neutral people will die. And that's why he hates rebels, not because they opposing government, but because they started war for whatever reason. War is bad. And by same time, refugees who try to join rebel forces or escape imperial occupied areas, or even neutral civilians who, again, in his mind, don't help to aren't helping. He sees them as selfish and he sees them as enemy. And now it may when I tell story in second draft from Lorenzo's point of view, I'll do my best to make it sound like it makes sense for Lorenzo. But don't get me wrong, when I switch back to Lars, to main character, Lars will absolutely look at Lorenzo like, dude, are you actually listening to yourself? You are a monster, you're deplorable, and I can't wait to cut you in the house with my greatsword. And that's exactly what Lars is going to do. Except now you know that as evil and irredeemable Lorenzo is, he does have point, at least from his own perspective. Now, in his mind, he has point, but he's still a bad person. And that, in my opinion, makes character actually scarier. Now, even if he's wrong, especially if he's wrong, if you find, finally getting to the end, if you find this advice in any way useful, I would obviously appreciate if you like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me grow the channel and make more of these. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a nice day and stay awesome.